Granblue Fantasy Relink has been a long time coming. We've known about this title for something like 7 to 8 years, with a dev cycle that seemed to be a real nightmare. At one point in the game's development, Platinum Games was working on the combat, but somewhere along the line, they either finished what they were working on, or they no longer were working well with Cygames, and Platinum left the project. Cygames took over in-house. Delay after delay after delay caused many of us to worry that if it ever released at all, it was sure to be a broken mess. I am happy to say that after all that time, it not only actually came out, but it was far from a mess. It is, in fact, a really great game. But let's back up a second and talk about that development because I think it's important to remember the context. Granblue Fantasy actually started off as a mobile game, a gacha style game that was available only in Japan. But even with only that region, it was incredibly successful. From there, the developer, Cygames, produced an anime that was animated by A1 Pictures for the first season and Mappa for the second, which followed the cast of Gran, Vern, Lyria, and Catalina, who eventually gathered up a few more to add to their ensemble. At the end of the second season, a quick flash of other characters who would join the crew kind of wraps up the final episode. After that anime came Granblue Fantasy Versus, a 2D fighting game that had some pretty solid mechanics and scored well among the fighting community, but unfortunately was pretty niche in terms of its broader appeal. And so while it did fine in terms of sales, it did not break through into the mainstream fighting community. As Cygames continues to work on their big budget RPG, they also developed a second fighting game. That is like an Atlas style re-release with added content, better netcode, all that kind of stuff. Then, the main RPG is finally announced to be releasing February of 2024. And we were all super excited, but also pretty nervous. When you start up the game, you essentially pick up, after that final episode of the anime, all of that development. Character stories and world building are meant to give context to the world of this airship crew. Without all that background, you can absolutely still play and enjoy the game, but there are Easter eggs and throwbacks for those of you who have put in that investment. You start with that full cast of 8 and are able to pick up other characters as you make your way through the story. The game gives these fate encounters, which are primarily JPEGs, albeit usually pretty nice looking ones, with text fading in, read by the voice actor of that particular character. They give meaningful stat bumps, and most include the story of how that character joined the crew, and some of them are super good, but others are totally skippable. You can just kind of mash the button to get through it quickly though, so it's not too bad if you're not interested in that story. The story of Relink is something I found enjoyable, but it's hardly revolutionary. It's definitely an anime style plot with pretty tropey characters and
let's save the world through the power of friendship
vibe. So if you can enjoy that style, you'll like this one just fine. If you haven't watched the anime or that story, doesn't really resonate with you, then the story is even less memorable. But it's not super complex, so it won't be hard to follow. You just won't have a connection to the characters to help pull you through. If you did watch the anime, there are little hints, Easter eggs, and things to find that will remind you of those adventures. Nothing major, so it's not a big deal if you haven't, but it's still something cool all the same. The story centers around one member being taken away from the crew, and the rest of the group going after them. It works pretty well, especially because they don't fill it with a bunch of bloat or overextend the plot's capabilities. If you shoot through the main story with little or no side activities, you'll likely finish it in around 10 hours. So even if you don't love the story, it doesn't take super long to get through it. Once that's done, there is so much side content, you could conceivably play it for upwards of 100 hours or more to 100% it. It felt good to me as a campaign to enjoy pretty quickly while doing a fair amount of the side content and then something to jump back into every once in a while once I finish the main campaign. The loop is as addicting as it gets, so let's dig into that.
Thought you had me.
You're fine!
Night falls.
Wave away!
Let's heat it up.
Endgame works a little differently, so we'll get to that a little bit later, but the main game loop works like this. You get a story beat, something happens, and all the characters say their piece. Then, you go to the next area, run through it, killing all the enemies, gathering components for crafting, opening chests, then usually some kind of boss at the end. After that, you get a little more story, then you can go back to town, upgrade your weapons, upgrade your characters, pick up some side quests, and then rinse and repeat. Now, hearing that, you might think that sounds boring, but let me dive into these elements before you make that decision. As I said before, the story may or may not resonate with you, but either way, it is not going to be the best story of the year. It's not going to emotionally move you, but it's fine, and I think enjoyable enough to pull you through the main campaign. Once you start in an area, you'll feast on a gorgeous world, where nearly every biome and area looks absolutely incredible. The colors are vibrant, the animations are slick, the frames are near perfect, the characters all look absolutely incredible. The wind blows and ruffles your hair, and all is right with the world. Once you start moving, you'll fall even deeper in love, as the movements are smooth as butter. As you run, jump, roll, flip, and dodge through the environments, every action feels responsive and fluid. You'll find little blue orbs that are usually crafting materials, and purple ones that are lore entries. Those are these quick little things you can pick up on the run, but they're a bright color flash that catches the eye, gives you a reason to scour the maps. Treasure chests are typically hidden around corners and often give you a mix of money, crafting materials, and character progression resource. There are also these fun minigame chests that give you a parkour challenge with a time limit, which at first seemed annoying, but it's so quick and the reset is so fast. Plus, they give you better rewards, so they feel worth the trouble. I really enjoyed those movement puzzles. It served as like a quick minigame to grab your attention, and then it would just kind of go away. So because of how good everything feels to do, the rewards aren't often huge, but everything is so quick. I'll just do this real quick was a common thought for me. The combat is the bread and butter of the game. Oh man, you guys, combat is so stinking fun in Relink. Every character plays differently, so you can find one that you enjoy and just go for it. As you go, you'll be able to unlock new characters, and everyone, like I said, plays different. There are all kinds of tips out there for that, so I'm not going to give you one of those. But even though I'm skipping all that, I would highly recommend just save your game before you pick a character. Try one out that looks cool, and if you love it, keep it, and if you don't, reload and pick another one. You can't try out the character's movesets until you've picked one. And that's one thing I would change in this game. I wish that you could pick the character and try them out and then decide if you're going to actually take them or not, but that's not how it works. There are loads of videos that explain how each character works and how best to use them and manage their mechanics. So if you're curious, absolutely go check those out. But I'll tell you what, all the ones I played felt pretty good. I really actually enjoyed Gran, the main character. I loved Katana Lady and Lancelot, the dual blade guy, but there's some heavy hitters too that are really fun and some mages that have cool mechanics. Other than the gun characters, I don't think there was a single one I didn't enjoy. Your standard enemies are usually easy and quick, making you use some abilities and learn, but not really push you. Then you'll find elite units, mini bosses, and then usually some kind of area boss that requires you to really learn their mechanics of the enemy, employ the measures you know of your character to counter their abilities. If you're doing side stuff but not 100%, I found the bosses to be like the perfect amount of challenge. But because of that, I wonder if you did no side content, how difficult it would be. And if you did everything, how easy it would be. But that aside, the bosses are super fun. There's this one area where you're running away and the boss is destroying the environment. But instead of making that like a cutscene where you're running away and things break, Relink makes it happen in real time. So you're running, and if you don't get your butt out of the way in time, you will die because the environment falls apart, and then you start over. It's great. It's super fun. It's really intuitive and engaging. Like, that kind of stuff always was a cutscene before. And so to have it in real time like that is just amazing. They have some like huge boss enemies that require these cannons, which reminded me a bit of Monster Hunter or Wild Hearts, if you played that. It's nothing amazing by itself, but it's nice as a break from the fighting, so it gives you different styles, which I really liked. I found the combat so quick and relentless, meant to keep your heart rate up, so to speak, and I really enjoyed it, especially because of how quick it is. It never felt boring or like it was a slog to fight through. It was just a quick battle and you were on to the next thing. Coming up with combos and ways to utilize your party makeup, trying out new party members and finding combat styles that you click with, understanding the combat mechanics and how to quickly dispatch different enemy types, all make for a remarkably fun fighting system. Side quests are usually simple affair. You either are killing a certain number of monsters or picking up some items or things like that. They're kind of almost MMO style quests, but they work because you can grab a bunch of them, go out and do a level or a challenge or whatever, get your stuff, come back, wrap up whatever side quests you got, and head back out. It's simple and easy. They're nothing to write home about, but they make more rewards and cute little stories in the world, and so they work fine for me. But I wouldn't be surprised if you or some other people really lament that, because they are not big, impactful side quests or storylines. They're just kind of kill or get stuff quests. So just simple reward cash, right? That's it. Once you're done with this main story, though you can do some of it before, the end game is essentially side quests, bosses, and grinding for crafting gear. The loop they created here is a dopamine minefield, something that is clearly learned from their years on the mobile platform. In fact, it would feel very mobile-like if you could pay to get even one of these currencies. But Cygames understood the audience that they were chasing and made no microtransactions. In fact, they are regularly dropping free content in both characters and new bosses. The grind loop, as you complete what I assume are procedurally generated side quests, achieve higher tier rewards on other quests. Hunt down monsters, fight bosses, all to get materials you need to get better weapons, upgrade those weapons, fill your perk tree, upgrade your characters, and fiddle with the movesets of your characters until you get them just right. It is highly addicting. I don't even usually like that kind of stuff, and I don't tend to do end game content, as there's always some other story to play, and that's my favorite part of games. But I can't help but keep this one downloaded and just hop in once in a while to grind a few more fights. Obviously, the grind wouldn't work as well if the visuals and combat weren't as good as they are, but the team has nailed the economy to such a finite degree, it's almost mesmerizing for me. And the fights are so quick, you could jump in for 5-10 minutes, do a couple runs, and then jump into something else. To correctly manage so many materials and upgrade perks and weapon modifiers and everything else is just incredible. I've heard that going for the platinum and ultimate weapons and such might be a little too much and the grind gets old by then. But I haven't played with that in mind, so it isn't something that bothered me, but probably something to know if you're thinking about getting Relink as a trophy hunter. I recommend leveling your main character and only doing the others once you hit a wall. Until you hit the end game, materials are fairly few and far between. So if you're trying to keep everyone leveled up, you'll end up weaker overall. Also, apparently there's this trick to leveling up the characters that you can get through that card system, where if you get your first character and don't get others until you max out their stats, the others will come already maxed or much higher on the tree. But I haven't tested that out yet, so I cannot confirm the truth of that. Alright, let's wrap this up. Granblue Fantasy Relink is a fantastic action JRPG. I know, it's shocking. Who knew?
JRPGs were unlocked at turn-based?
No, say it ain't so.
Anyway, this is a fantastic action JRPG that doesn't eat up all your time if you don't want it to. With an incredible combat system and a passable story, is it the best game you'll play all year? No, but it probably is one you will really enjoy, and maybe even keep going back to. For me, Relink is easily an 8 out of 10, almost scratching its way to a 9. If the story hit just a bit more, I think it would have been there. Truly, it is a great game, and I had a ton of fun with it. Also, from a parent's perspective, other than a little bit of language, it's actually pretty safe for kids. It's high-octane action, incredibly stylish visuals, fun characters, and engaging world, making something I think almost anyone can enjoy.
It's time.
Get him, guys! Our back!
Ringside Riddle!
Tempest Blade! Ice Tissue!
Seize the dead! Showtime! Gale Burst!
And that's it for me. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the like button. And if you're new around here, smack that subscribe button for me, will ya? Let me know down below if you've played the game and what your thoughts are. As always, thank you so much for watching, and good hunting.